All right, so why don't we start? So,
Nice.
good afternoon, everybody. So, I just wanted to welcome you to this update on how exporters can survive COVID-19 and prosper. We delivered this back in March, I think it was, and Christelle gave some great insights into how companies were changing their strategy, their sales strategies then, and we just thought it was appropriate to give you a bit of an update on how things have changed. So, I'm not going to speak very long, and I'm just going to hand over to Christelle because she has all the knowledge. And just welcome, Christelle, and thank you again for sharing your insights and your knowledge with us today.
Thank you. Thanks, Ken, for the intro. I'm very happy that we're doing this update because things have changed since we did the last Exportia Lab on COVID. And so first of all, I would like to send all my best wishes to our Melbourne-based friends and colleagues and work colleagues. And so at the moment, it looks a bit like this. We're still, part of the country is in lockdown, and we're still in the middle of it. We have a very high number of cases as far as a region we know the most at Exportia, which is the European Union. And so those numbers are not great, obviously. So we all feel a little bit like that. So basically, what do we do with our export? Do we stay in our bubble? Do we wait that everything comes back to normal, or do we act? So for those of you who don't know me, I think I have a very slow computer today. Sorry, it seems that my okay. So today we have a very good reasons to not stop and to keep going and working with our exports. COVID has shown us that we need to keep exporting, diversifying our markets, and that's an even bigger reason to continue working on our export. Recently, in July, the President of the European Union has announced a stimulus package of 750 billion euros. And what's interesting is the focus of the stimulus package will be around 5G, around grid infrastructure. It will be around artificial intelligence, industrial digitization, and renewables. So it's and sustainable transport as well. It will also have a project around energy efficient buildings. So the world keeps working, and there's still opportunity we should look at, and that's as we can see the focus today of the European Union and how they're deblocking that stimulus. The other side is, according to IBES, so one of their last update on COVID, a lot of Asian manufacturers competing with Australia have had difficulties to maintain their supply, and that does create some opportunities for Australian manufacturers to be able to be a reliable supplier, and it really gives opportunities to be in the race, to be an alternative reliable supply for global markets. So I see that as a strong opportunity. Another example I'd like to share with you today is I'm regularly in contact, as you know, with different industries in Europe and multinationals. And as I was discussing with one manager of a very large equipment manufacturer for the construction industry, one of the plans that they're currently working on is, because of COVID, they've decided to invest over a 2-year plan on how they're going to make their business and their factories and their production contactless. Are they going to enable social distancing in the longer term? and how they're going to automate and modernize their factory. So that does also create a lot of opportunity for businesses like yours, like your businesses that are here today, which are providing innovative solutions. Also, at the moment in Australia, so Austrade is working on a number of free trade agreements. And as some of you and most of you are interested into the European market, you'll be delighted to know that they are working with one free trade agreement with the European Union. So that also creates some opportunities. So my question to you is, do we wait the end of COVID to push our exports? Of course, you know, I'd say no, let's not wait. Let's get on with it and let's work on it. So most of you know me, so I'll pass very briefly on that. So I'm Christelle, I'm the owner of Exportia, and I have 20 years of experience in sales in Europe. And as a business, we have a track record of taking small, innovative Australian companies to their first €1 million in sales and beyond. Today, for example, we manage about a total of 75 distributors worldwide on behalf of our customers and in team with our customers. I'm also a second-time author, so at the end of the presentation, you will get an invitation for the book launch at the end of the month. So the second book, it will be about the 4 steps to generate your first €1 million in sales. But what I really do is this. This is what we do with my team. So we promote Australian technology to different industry, to construction, to city councils. So you see Isabel, one of my team members here. She's on the German highway with her booth full of Australian technology. We here on a construction site in Stuttgart. Here with the sales team, going to do a sales call in healthcare, on a trade show with a 4x4 equipment distributor. So this is really what we do. We just do, at the moment, of course, we mainly do that online. We keep close to our customers in Europe. But our focus is really to activate the sales to get our clients to their first €1 million in sales and beyond. So as a bit of background, and I'll flick that quickly because most of you know me, I originally worked for IBM in Europe, in Paris, and I used to sell to their corporate accounts, banking and insurance, so hardware, software, and maintenance, about €40 million turnover each year. And then I migrated to Australia. That's when I started Exportia in 2006. So the reason we are here today is I think that new exporters should not delay their preparation to their market entry into international markets. I think this is risky not to start preparing and to postpone it. And current exporters really have to work really hard on their international customer base. And if you kind of put your international business on hold, those international customers will be unforgiving. They won't forgive you that you're not servicing them. So it's really important for new and current exporters to just continue to do what we have to do. And what we are going to do today is I've worked on providing you 10 tips to continue developing those export sales and in the current situation of COVID. So this is what we are going to go through. We're going to look how to stay open for business and how to show it. We're going to look at how to be COVID-19 proof in our product and our solution. We're going to take the pulse of key relationships with international customers. We're going to rethink our industry target, and we're going to rethink about our strategy. We are going to think about how do I get support here in Australia. There's a lot of things out there, and how to adapt my sales process to this new environment. I want to spend some time to talk about reviewing distribution partnerships at the moment. We talk about opportunities that COVID has created. We talk about your sales team in Europe and looking after international markets, and we are looking at payment terms too. So let's start with number one, how you show that you're still open for business and why is it important. So it's really important to be active online at the moment, because if you have not been able to travel to markets, or if you have not been in touch that much with your international customer, it's really important for them to see you as active and still in business. Let's be honest, there has been a few businesses that have had to close down. So you have to show that you're here and that you're available for business. So the best way to do that, because at the moment everybody is online searching for products and solutions, the best way to do that is to have your website updated, post regularly on social media, and make sure all your information are available on Google as well. It's very important to do that. Continue to send your regular marketing communication, a newsletter, even if it's not with a lot of content, it doesn't matter. Just keep what you usually do. Just keep doing that. So it's important that you demonstrate that you are solid and active. It's very important. In terms of tip number two, COVID-19 proof. So how do you make your product pandemic proof? So there's a few things to consider. The first thing is in terms of installation, the fact that you may not have your team, even whether you have a European team or not, usually one of your team members would maybe go on site and do an installation of a machine, of a piece of equipment, would provide some training. So what are you going to do to make sure that the installation, or even if it's an IT solution, how is that installation going to happen with restricted ability to be on site? So at the moment, for example, in Europe, you would be able to visit some sites. Some large multinational have still refused visits from external visitors. Others have opened up a bit more. So it means you still have some limitation there. So that means you have to think about a way to be able to provide the installation remotely. And you need to have a think about that. Either it is through a partner, either what can you do online, how can you explain the installation better, how can you train somebody to be able to do the installation for you. These are the questions you need to think about. Are you able to monitor your product remotely to provide some support for that product? Is it Bluetooth enabled for you to have a connection to the machine? Can you use that? Can you plan that in your future product development to make that product accessible online, and that piece of equipment accessible online to be monitored and potentially fixed? So that's some of the things that we need to think about to be pandemic proof. The other thing is, and the preoccupation of employers around the world is, how do I minimize contact, of course, with the pandemic? Can I make any feature or any of my product contactless instead of touch-based? So can I make can I swap? Can I make it use contactless instead and minimize content? So that's some of the things you need to, in that new world, you need to take into account in your product development, and that will make you pandemic proof. Number 3, so take the pulse. Take the pulse of key customer relationships. So you have developed over the years relationship with key customers, maybe in in Europe or maybe international customers, make sure that you actually reach out to them, pick up the phone and really see how they are going. So those, usually the international customers that we secure, they usually are hard sales. The first sale are always difficult. So you want to nurture those customers. You don't want to lose them. You want to make sure that you can detect and if they are fragile. What's the impact of the pandemic on their business? And will that affect your revenue or not? So make sure you actually pick up the phone, reach out to them and see how they are going. It's a very important thing to do. Also, what happens for us small business exporters is sometimes when we start in a market, we tend to have one very large deal, one very large distributor or one very large customers that get us started in the market. So it means that in a pandemic situation or even generally in international business, you don't want to rely on a customer that holds a very large share of your revenue. You want to make sure that you diversify that. You don't want to be too relying on a big customer. It's too dangerous. So the first thing you need to do is check with them. Are they in a good shape? Watch for signs, of course, to see that will the pandemic have any immediate impact on your revenue. But the other thing you need to do straight away and start now is to diversify this customer base. So if you have a very major client in Europe, I don't know, in the Netherlands or in the Czech Republic, then start to build up your customer base, additional customers in those regions, just to mitigate your risk. It's very important to maintain your revenue. Number 4, how to think about your target industries. Are you well positioned? So one of our customers, and I think he's here today, one of the things that we've worked on together is when we scoped our project, we thought, okay, normally we would sell that product to the retail industry, but today, how is retail doing? Retail is not doing great. The shops have had to close down, and they're not as reliable as a market. So why don't we instead refocus into a segment of market where we have more certainty that this business is going to be there forever? So we refocused our strategy for our campaign into emergency transport and roadside assistance. So we decided to reshape our strategy and to refocus it instead of keeping and staying in target industries that may present some risk, and over the next few years that will be struggling. So it's really a question to you: which target industry you are already active in can you focus on to be able to really make it a sustainable business for you and until COVID is gone. And we don't have any end date of COVID, so we might as well build a sustainable business based on industries that are reliable for us. Tip number 5, get support now. So at the moment, there's a lot of support available from us industry, obviously, like Ken helping to get that event together, to share information with small businesses. But there's also local government industry associations that are actually putting together some programs. Austrade is also putting some specific incentive. So really reach out to your network and to your industry association to see what they are doing in your industry. So for example, for the exporters, the Export Market Development Grant, which is a grant that subsidizes export-related expenses, marketing expenses. What they've done is they waive the requirement for performance. So let's say if you're to be eligible for that export grant, you don't need to if your revenue decreased this year, in normal times, you would not be eligible anymore for that grant, but they've waived that requirement. They've also increased the payment ceiling to 100K instead of 40K for the initial payment of the grant. So Austrade has made that grant a bit more flexible to support small business. And there's a number of schemes like SOAR to support small businesses. So make sure you reach out to Ken also to get all the information about the different businesses, but also to your industry association and to Austrade. So number 6, tip number 6, adapt your sales processes. So make sure that your sales process is bulletproof for a pandemic. So basically today, your sales team is not able to visit customers as much. There is some restriction. So how are we going to continue to generate leads and convert and sign some sales in these days? So how are we going to approach a new market, and how are we going to generate leads? To be honest, so we do a lot of lead generation campaigns. It hasn't changed much on that side. The only thing is today in September, in comparison to May, everybody is back in business, at least in Europe, is back in the companies. We might go into lockdown again in some European countries. We don't know that yet. But at the moment, right at the moment, you are able to actually call people and reach them. And our cold calling campaign and lead generation campaign are working normally. So for lead generation, it doesn't change much. The only thing that has really shifted during COVID is the impact of social media campaigns and lead generation campaign is much stronger, much bigger impact. They're much more efficient because everybody is online. So those social media campaigns are working really well to generate leads. So use them. So on the first, the lead generation part of your sales process, keep going with lead generation, cold calling, but also use social media. It's a good way. Once, let's say, you've secured a lead, now your sales team or even your distributors team may not always be able to go on site and visit the prospect. So what do? You have to make sure that your product is, that you can demonstrate it online, that you have videos to do some demonstration, that your documents are very visual, that you can make them very visual, to make sure that your message is very easy to be understood by anyone without having a face-to-face presence. So for example, we have one of our clients which has a very big piece of machinery, and basically we've been able last 2 weeks ago to demonstrate the functionality of the machine to a German customer, and with webcams, and also with the ability to share the interface of the machine with the customer. And that has worked really well. You were really able to see how the machine was working, see the control panel, and it's been very powerful. So you have to find ways to demonstrate your product without face-to-face. And then once you've done your demo, how are you going to convince a prospect to actually buy your product? How are they going to try it? So in terms of COVID times, I think because these are uncertain times, Usually I've had customers in the past which had a full budget allocated to free samples or free products and all of that. As I said before, and that remains in comparison to our Exportia lab held in May, I would suggest that we don't do free anymore. We really try to sell maybe smaller quantity. So you do, you reduce your minimum order quantity for the client to buy, or you make maybe a free with another customer. We're doing a free product, but they're paying for the freight. So we're trying to gauge the interest of the customer. Because we're not there and we may not visit them, we really need to engage with customers who have a genuine interest in the product. And you can only gauge that if your customer is buying in, paying for something. And if you give a free sample and you don't hear back from them, then you've wasted your time. So really try to get some buy-in when you get them to try. You can do some try and buy concept. They can try and rent, and then they can convert that rental into a purchase if it's a large piece of equipment. I mean, in IT, in the software industry, it's very easy to do those trial period for a small fee, and then to convert the client once they're happy with the performance. I'm just gonna look, no questions so far, Ken, right? I can't hear you.
No, can't see any.
Okay, all right. Another important point for you in your sales process is to be super careful with your due diligence. So is this company solid financially? It's more important than ever. There's a lot of companies that are a bit wobbly at the moment. Make sure they are very stable financially. And also, I will always push at the moment for upfront payment as much as you can. And also, if some of you have attended some of my webinars around payment terms, I will also reserve the right in your contract, if you have, or if you are writing an offer, to change the payment term if the company doesn't pay on time. So really, really watch that and include that in your sales process. It's very important at the moment. Okay, review. It's tip number 7. It's time to review your distribution. If you're using distribution partners, it's time to check on them and see how they are going. So how are they going? Are they solid? What is their sales force doing? Are they still visiting customers? Are they all working from home? How many days per week are they traveling? So I have a lot of distributors in Europe. At the moment, their sales rep are only traveling 1 day a week, for example. So what does that impact you in terms of sales? How they're going to get the revenue for you? And then have a closer look to the smaller players, because sometimes distributors which are smaller may be a bit more fragile. So make sure that you watch how they are going, so that you don't endanger your revenue. Other thing with distributors is, because we are limited in the travel side of things, can they help you with their local presence? Is there anything they can do for you? Can you give them a bit more responsibility in terms of site visits, maintenance, repair, installation, training? Can you work with them because they are there, and they would be able to support the customers if you and your team is unable to travel? So it's also another thing to think about. And again, stay firm on your payment terms. Watch for their payment regularity. Make sure that those payment terms are going to be regular, and watch out. So that's an important time to do that. Tip number 8, there are actually opportunities during COVID times that you may want to think about in terms of product. It's not about, starting to be a PPE manufacturer or going into that new field. Some manufacturers in Australia have moved into the PPE, the personal protective equipment sector. But it's also about, can you showcase how your piece of equipment can be safely used during the pandemic? If workers are working with the piece of equipment, how safe it is? Can you maybe educate your clients around the safety of your product for workers in a pandemic times? That's an idea to consider. The other thing to consider is digitization gives, and doing everything online gives a much faster access to international markets. Customers and don't expect you to come and visit them anymore. There's a lot of industries where you were, for months trying to get a meeting face-to-face with the right decision makers. Right now, you can very quickly set up a Zoom meeting, a short one, and it's much easier to reach people. It has really, really accelerated the access to decision makers. That's what we found when we're marketing our client's product. Everybody has moved away from face-to-face. It's accepted, it's a fact, and that gives you a lot of flexibility to reach out to different time zones on the same day and reach out to a high number of customers without traveling. So let's try to make the most of that. There's also, I was very surprised that this was still a trend, but there's still a lot of businesses that are not fully paperless. There's still a lot of industries which rely on paper. And so there's a lot of solution to be provided to help in the IT sector, for example, to help businesses move away from paper. I was very surprised that it was still a theme, because in our business, we don't have paper since day one. But that's also a trend. Some companies still need assistance. They need to accelerate and make that happen very fast now.
So Christelle, as part of the Entrepreneurs Program, if we, with our clients, we actually have facilitators who work on business transformation. So things like that, if you're moving you're moving towards being paperless, so that transformation towards a more digital environment, we have facilitators who can help you do that as well. Yeah.
Excellent. Sounds good. I think that's a great thing. If your business is not 100% paperless, I think it's time to seriously work on that. And a lot of international customers are thinking about the same. I mean, I know very large organizations that went into lockdown. They're very large multinationals, and they got all panicked because they didn't have access to their paper files. I mean, does that really still exist? Yes, it does. And that creates a lot of opportunities for smart solutions, paperless, for those to help those businesses modernize. There's also a crying need for more cybersecurity. I mean, we've seen that's one of the findings of COVID. There has been a lot of large businesses again, and smaller businesses as well, have been exposed to cyber attacks in a big way. And that has created a lot of demand worldwide for cybersecurity. And any system that you would have or you would use, you really need to emphasize if you have software embedded in your product, or if you have is how safe is your product to be accessed? And how are you going to how are you going to protect your customers' data? How are you going to prevent any cyber attack? It's a very, very top of mind topic. It's like having a new competitive advantage if you can actually showcase that. How are you COVID safe? How are you secure in terms of data protection and in terms of cybersecurity. An interesting one.
Sorry, can I interrupt there again?
Sure.
So the Entrepreneurs Program, we actually have for our clients, or I'm happy to share it with anybody. We have a self-assessed cybersecurity diagnostic. So you can assess yourself, and it will give you some indication of where you stand in terms of a risk matrix. And so if anybody wants to email me after this, Leo will send out my email address, I'm sure. I can send you a link and you can do a self-assessed cybersecurity assessment. If you're an existing client of ours, then it's possible that you can get a facilitated one, a more detailed analysis with your growth facilitator as well. So
yeah, I've done it and it's easy and fast. I mean, it didn't take me long to complete it for my business.
And it is top of mind. I sent an email to 4 clients about 2 weeks ago, and this self-assessed cybersecurity diagnostic takes about 20 minutes. 2 of them replied to me within 35 minutes. They'd actually done it. They'd completed the self-assessment, and virtually within about 10 days, we've done the facilitated ones as well, because these people are seeing that cybersecurity is a big risk for them and for their data and for their clients, and obviously people are asking more questions about it as well.
Yeah, and small business, we don't always think about all those things. So even if we're a small business, it's even more needed. So coming back to that story about what opportunities has COVID created, I had a phone call 2 weeks ago, and to my that made me really sad. So one of my travel agent I've worked with for over the last at least 6 years. He's been doing all my international booking for years. He's been a really excellent operator, attention to detail. And of course, because of COVID, he had to change job. And so he moved into a medical device company where he's doing supply chain. And of course, I was very sad for myself, selfish me. But obviously, those people in the industry, such as in the travel industry, they have a lot of skills that you can actually use in your businesses. Another example, one of the businesses that is here today with us is using aviation industry professionals, so pilots and crew members, to deliver some trainings. Imagine the excellence of those skills for a small business that is sometimes trying to recruit internationally or locally with difficulty. This gives you a whole new network of people that you can tap into to expand your business. And those people in the travel and aviation industry, they know international customers, they know customer service. Sometimes they speak multiple languages, they know international, they know time zones, they know all of that. They're such a good match for exporters. So I think this is an opportunity for us small business that we can tap into, and some of my suppliers, customers have really used that to their advantage, which I think is remarkable. So tip number 9. So we almost look after your sales team. So the sales team the salespeople are the ones that are usually like myself. We're always on the road. So basically for us to be stuck at the office or at home, it's a whole new world. So make sure you keep them occupied with business development projects. So, you know, they don't have so much face-to-face time with their customers anymore. They've got room and scope for projects. Should they tackle a new industry? Should they map out a new industry? Should they generate list of potential customers? Should they just think about reaching out to their customers to test if they're satisfied? if they would like to talk about improvements. So should they work on setting up a new country, explore an entire new country, evaluate who are the players, start to do a bit of surveying and research around that country. So really make sure that your sales team is on board, motivated with interesting projects. This one is important one, watch for their mental health. Especially the ones that are in lockdown. When you're a salesperson and you're on the road, or you've been on the road for a long time, or on the plane or on the train, you're not used to stay at home, and really look after them. Make sure they feel fine, they feel surrounded, and they're supported by the team. Especially for the ones that have sales teams that are based overseas, it's important to reach out to them and check if they're okay. That's a very important one. Make them comfortable as well. Some of them have been in lockdown in Europe and now they're out. Make them comfortable. Do they have everything they need to work comfortably, you know, without making it too painful, you know, in terms of screen, in terms of printing, in terms of whatever they need. Make sure nobody is too comfortable as well. This is, even though you are on lockdown, this is still an office environment. And the reason I have a picture of a dog there is because a few weeks ago, I did an interview of a candidate based out of Germany for Exportia. And I was greeted by the dog, and the dog had to wave to me during the job interview. So I love dogs, but really we still need to make sure our sales team is still very professional and is still showcasing the company. So make sure they have, you know, their banners, they're still professional, they don't kind of deliver their presentation in their pajamas. And so that's also something to watch, because after a while, if everybody starts to relax, it might just be a bit of an issue. Last tip, important one, be strict on payment terms and watch out. So payment upfront as much as you can, because that's the most reliable way to work. It's really important. And be strict and really make a conscious effort to monitor those payment terms. Are they on time? Are they not on time? What's happening? Should I change the next payment? Should I hold my shipment, my delivery of product, because I haven't received the payment? So that's a really important one. So let me regroup on our 10 tips. So be open and show that you're open for business online. Make sure everything is up to date on your website. Post a news, post a photo of your team or with a mask or something. Post something to make sure anyone from an international market is going to Google your business and see this business is open and functioning. COVID-proof your business in terms of products, you know, installation and maintenance and monitoring of your product. Have a think of what feature you could develop. Take the pulse of key relationships and key customer relationship and diversify your customer base. Rethink of your target industries. Pick industries that are COVID-proof and that are sustainable in those times. Get support. There's a lot of industry association, us industry, reach out to Ken to see all those programs that are available for small businesses. Adapt your sales process to a new way of selling, which is not face-to-face anymore. So integrate all those web demos, those trials, into your sales process. It's very important. Review your distribution, number 7. See how your distributors and your channel partner are going. How are they working? Will that affect your revenue or not? Number 8, look at opportunities brought by COVID. You know, a product that is safe to use during a pandemic, a contactless product, cyber secure product, is also interesting, and tap into some of the industries skills that are available at the moment, travel and aviation, for example. Look after your sales team, make sure they're okay, and keep them busy with interesting projects. And watch for your payment terms is my last tip to you. So as usual, I always like to give a challenge to people. I have two challenges today. One challenge is, first of all, to reach out to one of your key overseas customers and take the pulse. See how are they going, especially if you haven't reached out to them. So pick one of those customers and reach out to them and see how they are. Try to detect some sign. Yep, they're fine. They've transformed and they still are going well, or do you need to accelerate the acquisition of new customers to in case you lose that revenue? Challenge number two, is there one thing in your product offering, a feature, a service that you could add that would enable you to be COVID safe or sustainable in the longer term? And that could be a very good thing to think about. So at last, and to wrap up, I think as small businesses, one of our strengths is that we are agile. We are able to adapt and change. We're able to shift. And that's our strength. So I think we can do that. And I think we have the support we need, and we have the community we need. Thank you. Dankeschön. Merci.
Christelle, can I make a comment?
Sure.
Hold on, am I on?
You're on.
Look, with your opportunities, I think one of the things when you look at in your business, and I think, look, the value of a presentation like this, everybody, is it makes you think about your business. I mean, some of the things Christelle says probably pretty obvious, but yet the other things that just makes you think, oh, maybe I can look at my business differently. So let me give you an example of a company that did that. And the real question is, what are the assets that you have in your business? And so this company actually made dishwashers. And so they obviously had some manufacturing processes, et cetera, but the other thing is that they had a database. So one of their key assets was their database. So they actually pivoted to making disinfectant, but the value was that they had a database of people who they could sell it to. And in fact, once they started doing this, they were making more money out of the disinfectant than they were out of dishwashers. So I suppose the thing is, take an inventory of what your assets are, because there may be things in your business that you don't sort of, or you take for granted. You don't really appreciate the value of them. But if you've got a database of customers, clients in a certain area, there may be things that you could sell to them which you probably maybe haven't contemplated before.
Yes, that's true. Any question that we would not have had covered? Anyone would like to ask a question or ask for more info on one of the OS industry schemes? Yes, Christine, go ahead. Ask a question. Would you like me to unmute you? Okay. Where are you? Here you are. Hello, hello.
Hi, can you hear me now, Christelle?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, thank you. Great presentation. I'm just interested in your thoughts. Do you know when you have a relationship with a customer, a lot of things you've suggested are, they're logical, and as Ken said, it's a great reminder of things that you should be doing. Yes. Are there any, and you talk about social media with those that you don't know as well, but I guess the cold call, I'm just interested in your thoughts. What's your experience with things that have particularly worked well and not well when you don't have the relationship, you're doing it all virtually? What's some tips for new players, please, Christelle, in that space?
Yes. So So generally speaking, it's all about the right qualification of the prospect. So if I start an entire new industry, and I've done that a lot in healthcare recently, I am really going to have a small list of very, very specific targets that I'm going to really study on what they're doing, what they're publishing, what they're working on, what is their preoccupation, and then I'm going to pitch to them individually. And I think it's really the most successful way to really reach out to new targets that you would never have done before, is really to have a strong case for them. So if, let's say, a small business has a track record in helping a company in the construction industry, then I would really take those arguments, study what this construction company is doing in Europe at the moment, and really come from that angle and mention my track record. So it's really about being really, really narrow and focusing the approach. And I think that's always the best. Of course, some of my customers have done very successful social media campaigns because everybody is online and aware, but it's also comes down to the messaging that needs to be hitting the right target, where you have a strong value add, your product is making a difference to the market. So it's better to have a smaller list of very well targeted people where you really have something to ask them, or where you really have something to bring to them. So I don't know if it's what you...
Yeah, that's great. That's very helpful. Thanks, Christelle. Thank you.
Christelle, Lachlan has made a comment here. He says, I would also suggest watching costs of supply and make sure that these are recovered. Freight has increased 15+%. Yeah. Don't be afraid to increase prices or review costs. So I think that's some pretty wise counsel.
Yes, and what we've been doing at the moment is any pricing we're doing, we excluding the freight, because the freight is varying so much at the moment. It's so high, and it's quite well accepted. People know it. People know that the freight is high because that's a global market. It's the same for everyone. Everyone is under that same constraint. So really, really price X works. I mean, without the freight initially when you negotiate.
I think probably related to that then is also understanding Incoterms, and maybe you just want to make a comment about that if people aren't familiar with that term.
Yes, so we have done a lot of education pieces around, webinars and around Incoterms. So these are the trading terms that are recognized worldwide. They're quite standardized. So when you are quoting, just make sure you're using one of those terms to describe whether you are excluding freight or including freight. Is that X factory here in Sydney or in Melbourne? Does your price include the freight? Does the price include the insurance? Does that include the shipment to the port or to the customer's factory? So you need to be extremely specific around that to make sure that everybody knows what they are talking about.
And I don't know, Christelle, is that another opportunity to talk about Incoterms in times of COVID?
Yes, I think there is still, because there is an update. They've just recently been updated. So our last webinar was prior the update. So I think it's a good time to do an update on the new Incoterms 2020. Yes.
Just for everybody, I've put the survey link in the chat, so that would be useful if you could complete the survey. Leo will send it out again as well, but we find that most people are too busy and don't fill it out, but it does help us to actually work out what programs are of value, and also the you know, if what other sorts of programs might be useful for people in the future. So I would encourage you, please, to complete that either from the link in the chat or from the link that Leo is going to send out when he sends out something after this webinar has been completed.
Also, if I may, would like to extend an invitation. So I'll have the pleasure to welcome 3 guests on the 29th. So as you know, I'm doing the launch of my second book, but what's interesting is the guests that I'll be interviewing. So we'll have Daniel Rogers, Managing Director of OmniTanker, who is a manufacturer of highly corrosive liquid tankers, which are manufactured in Sydney, and I'll have the privilege to interview him. He'll share his journey in the European market, so that'll be interesting. I have also the pleasure to interview David White, Director of Advanced Robotic Technology based in Brisbane, who manufactures a welding and cutting robot powered by artificial intelligence, which would be excellent as well. And then I'm also interviewing Dr. Alex Birrell, the CEO of Clean Space Technology, which are manufacturers of respiratory protection devices. So you're all cordially invited. It will be the 29th at 3 p.m. It's also about sharing experiences. So I think it should be of very great value to have them talk about it. All right.
All right, we'll wrap it up now.
Yes, I think if we don't have any other question, I guess, yes, I'll leave you for the final word.
Thank you, Christelle. I like your title, 10 Practical Tips for Exporters, because the advice you give is always practical, and that's what I always find and appreciate from the presentations that you make for us. So thank you again, and trust everybody is doing well, and hopefully you gained at least 3 or 4 or 5 of those steps or tips which you can actually apply in your business over the next few weeks and show your resilience from COVID. So thank you again for attending, and please complete the survey.
Okay, thank you everyone. Nice to see you all.
Righto. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Ken.